Hello and welcome to another episode of Let's Argue About Plants, the podcast for people who love plants.
But not always the same ones. I'm Carol Collins. I am editor-in-chief at Fine Gardening.
Hi everybody, I'm Danielle Sherry. I'm the editorial director at Fine Gardening. And today, as we slide or hurdle towards the holidays, we are talking about our year in review, our best plants or plants that really performed well, or we saw that we really liked and were performing well elsewhere. Carol, what approach did you take to year in review?
But this is the easiest topic, right?
Anything that tickled your fancy in 2025?
Taking a stroll through the camera roll, and but I tried to come up with the ones that stood out for me.
Mm-hmm. I like that.
And just in one way or another.
Good call. I looked at maybe one or two new plants that really were doing well. And then I looked at maybe a plant or two that I was like, I didn't think it looked like anything the last few years, and it really came into its own this year.
I have some of those, yes.
Oh, amazing. Okay, so let's go into your first plant, Carol.
Okay, so I'm starting with my favorite souvenir plant. And, and I'm
One you snuck into your suitcase on your way home from a trip?
That is 100% it. And I'm sure that I have many co-conspirators out there in the audience who do the same thing, right? You too. Mm-hmm. For me, that's the best souvenir of a trip, or whether it's a work trip or a personal trip. But my favorite souvenir plant of the year came from a trip to the Seattle and Bainbridge Island area of Washington. And I went for the first time this year to Heronswood Garden.
Beautiful.
And that's where this plant came from. So it's burgundy African geranium. That's Pelargonium sidioides, X sidioides. It's a hybrid.
Okay.
Burgundy. And this is often listed as the straight species of African geranium sidioides, but that must be the seed parent, right? Yeah. But it is a hybrid, and Heronswood, on the plant label, they posit that it might be, the pollen parent might be Pelargonium reniform, which is the little kidney-shaped leaves. And so I think based on the physical characteristics of this geranium, that's their best guess of what this African geranium crossed with. So this one's not hardy for us. It is perennial in zones 9 to 11 in Africa, where it's from, possibly down to 7 or 8 if you have full sun and excellent drainage. But I am not going to take that chance. For me, this is always going to be a container plant. So I want to just if for folks that aren't familiar with Heronswood, I just want to fill everyone in on what a magical place this is, and why I needed a souvenir from Heronswood. So Heronswood is on 15 acres. It's in Western Washington, Kitsap County, and it was founded in 1987 by Dan Hinckley and Robert Jones, and it was a nursery and a garden for years. 8,000 species and cultivars from around the world. It's arranged in 6 gardens. And then they sold it years ago to a company that promptly went out of business, closed the nursery, and it sat until in 2020. In 2012, the Port Gamble Skolem tribe purchased Heronswood at auction, and they founded a nonprofit foundation to guide the new organization that Heronswood became. And they started restoring this garden and bringing back there were some plants that were lost, but they're bringing back these collections that Dan Hinckley had started and his partner had started years ago. So Dan is still director emeritus. He's still bringing plants in. He's still contributing his expertise. And so it's really cool what's happening with this garden. I just like, such a special place. It's different. You know, there's, the way that Dan described it is like, this garden was already here. We just revealed it. He's like that it wanted to be a garden. And I feel like what the tribe is doing with the garden is really special. So I was waiting to see my friend and longtime contributor Riz Reyes, who works at Heronswood now, and browsing through the nursery section, and I needed to find something that was going to fit in my suitcase, and so I chose this geranium, and then I found out Riz is the one who propagated these.
Oh my God. And yeah, well, that doesn't surprise me, because if it's weird and funky and cool, then it feels like Riz would be all over it. Like, yes. that's his shtick. He's good at that sort of thing.
Absolutely. Amazing. And this was, they have for members, like this is the nonprofit garden is now supported by members. And so this is a member plant. So if you're a member of Heronswood, I guess you get free plants or plants included in your membership, but also the general public like me can buy these plants. So once I found that out, once I found that Riz was the one that propagated it, I bought it. I dropped a photo in the show notes, show you what it looks like. It's, geranium, but tiny little leaves. They're sort of downy, silvery leaves, slightly heart-shaped or kidney-shaped. And the flowers are what tell you that this is a hybrid. So I don't know what the straight species flower color is, but these have a very, very dark violet, like red violet flower that you can really only see the color of it if it's backlit. Super cool. Small enough to fit in the side pocket of my backpack.
Nice.
And I rigged it up. I put cut the top off a water bottle and put that over it. And traveler's tip, you want to make sure that like security and anybody that wants to check to make sure what kind of plant you're carrying, you want to make sure they can see it or they're going to take your packaging all apart. So I got a see-through top on it. Went through security just fine. It had a nice plane trip home to Connecticut, and I planted it immediately. So, and I have brought it in now because it is not going to make it through a Connecticut winter.
Nice. And are you going to overwinter it in a sunny windowsill, or are you going to force it into dormancy and then reinvigorate it come spring?
No, I do the windowsill thing. I don't keep a lot of plants over the winter alive, but it makes a nice house plant, doesn't get too big. So yeah, it's going to be on a sunny windowsill. And at least one of the photos in the show notes shows it in its new home on the windowsill, on the special shelves that my husband built so that I could fit more plants into the good windows.
It's good to be married to a builder. It really is. Some days, not all days.
Not all days.
Nice. Well, you're going to be totally shocked because I'm just going to hop on your bandwagon. And we all know how I feel about annuals, which is I don't do a lot with annuals. Where I use annuals is generally to fill in holes and spaces that are empty because a plant died and I just need something to hold space until the next time I can get a shrub, a tree, or a perennial in the place. Or for new gardens that I've learned over the years, don't plant too closely, leave space and let the things that you've planted fill out eventually. So this is a case of the latter. I had actually an ash tree that came down because it got decimated by the borers a couple of years ago. Took it down eventually. It was a standing dead tree, and it left an amazing amount of sun exposure on the corner of our property. And my choices were turn it into a garden or let it get taken over by invasive burning bush and barberry, which I was just going to be fighting with constantly. So even though I said I was never going to start another garden, I've got plenty to deal with, I started another garden. And this was 2 years ago, I guess. So put in my typical hard-working bones, trees and shrubs primarily, some perennials, but I definitely had a lot of gaps and spaces to fill. So when our freebie packages from the plant companies that arrived in spring last year arrived, I didn't immediately give away my annuals to my neighbors. I actually held on to some and planted them. And one of them was Vivid Violet Kufia. So that's Kufia procumbens, Vivid Violet. It's part of a series of these new, very showy Kufias. And I don't know, there was something about this Vivid Violet. It had a beautiful kind of wrinkled star-shaped flower to it that was bright pink and a magenta center. And I thought, I can deal with that. It's not pink, it's not orange, it's not on my hit list of colors I don't like. So let's throw that in. And 12 inches tall and wide, a very dark green pointed leaf to it, dense little mounds of foliage, fuzzy. So I thought, oh, this is in the outer reaches. I'm going to need something that's deer proof. And wouldn't you know it, the deer didn't touch it all season. And man, was this a little performing annual. It started blooming almost out of the box, so in May, and it was blooming still in November of last year. So it just kept going and going. It's zones 9 to 11, so if you happen to be a listener that's in zone 9, this actually is a perennial for you. But for the great majority of the gardening public that are listening to us, it's an annual. So hooray, I was like, yay, good job, full sun, well-drained soil. I didn't really water it. It kind of did its own thing. Kufias are known to be very drought tolerant and not need a lot of inputs, no fertilizer or anything like that. So whatever, hooray, it was a good year in 2024. Then this year, serendipitous polite reseeding of this Vivid Violet Kufia. Right in the spaces that I needed it. And I thought, why do I have all these weeds? What is going on? But it wasn't. It was this Kufia reseeding itself, and it came back beautifully, sized up quickly. Again, that, 12 inches tall, 12 inches wide, again bloomed. We're now sitting here in November. I'm looking outside. It is still blooming right now. And we have had 2 hard freezes where I'm at, and it's still doing its thing. The plant kind of looks like holy hell, but that's fine. The blooms are still going on these dehydrated stems. And how amazing is that? So big bonus that it was a nice, polite reseeder. I will say there was another cultivar in this mix called Frosted Violet, which is, instead of magenta on purple, it was kind of a white on magenta. And that one either didn't reseed or it reverted back. Like the come true to seed was actually the violet, the Vivid Violet, because everything that reseeded this year was definitely Vivid Violet and had that magenta on purple color to it. But dude, I was so excited.
That is exciting. Free plants.
Free plants and not like wild either. I would hearken it to maybe like tall verbena, like Verbena bonariensis. Like it was polite. It reseeded in the general area where I had it planted last year. So big fan. It's Vivid Violet Kufia. Thank you to Proven Winners. They are not sponsoring this episode, but this is a Proven Winners plant in a series that came out of Kufias that they developed. I'm a big fan, and it was a real workhorse. Alrighty, Carol. Are you proud of me? I did an annual.
You did an annual and a fun one too. So yes, I'm very proud.
Thank you. Did you have additional annuals on your list, or did you go in a different direction?
I have one, it's not an annual, it's a non-hardy perennial.
Okay. Is that the one that's up next, or are you flipping the switch?
I'm saving it for the end.
Oh, save the best.
I am. So my next one is a hardy one. And it's so exciting. Oh my gosh. So I grew a crop of oranges this year.
Oranges, you say?
Oranges in Connecticut.
For anyone who needs a reminder, we are recording in New England. We both live in New England, so that's a rarity.
Yes. So most exciting fruit of the year goes to Flying Dragon Hardy Orange. That is now Citrus trifoliata. It was previously known when I bought it. It was Poncirus trifoliata, Flying Dragon. And that is hardy from zones 5 to 9. So it is one of the most cold hardy orange trees. It's native to China. This cultivar, I think the straight species gets bigger, but Flying Dragon gets 8 to 15 feet tall, very rarely up to 20 feet tall, and 16 to 20 feet wide. It grows extremely slowly. So in the entire time I've owned it, it has gotten maybe a couple, 2, 3, 4 inches taller, and I've had it for 5 or 6 years. It has these cool crooked branches and these backward curving spines, which it sort of has that feeling of like Henry Lauder's walking stick, or, with the weird twisting branches, which are really more obvious when the foliage is off it in the wintertime. So it is deciduous, and so it drops its leaves, and it gets pretty good autumn color, which we're getting right now. It's sort of a yellow to apricot base with little red tinges around the edges of some leaves. So that's quite lovely. And during most of the year, it has just like, pretty glossy green foliage from early spring till it turns color around this time in October. And in May, it gets beautiful white flowers, which it did for the first time this year. And I'll drop some photos in the show notes. And that was very exciting. I really didn't think about it after that for the rest of the summer. Didn't even look for oranges until like a month ago in fall, beginning of fall, and the leaves are changing color. I'm looking at it a little more closely. I'm like, by golly, I think there's an orange in there.
And how many years now has it been in the ground?
I would say at least five,
okay.
And maybe 6 years in the ground. So the first flowering and now the first fruit. So I think I have 6 oranges, and I pulled one of them off right away, and sniffed it and cut it open. It's just full of seeds. It's like mostly seeds in there, very little juice, very little pulp. I made, 2 tablespoons of juice. It's very sour / bitter. It tastes like lemon juice more than orange juice.
Oh, all right. So maybe in tea or something?
So people that have like trees of this and lots of oranges, they say that you can make enough juice and then mix it with sugar, and it's sort of, they call it orangeade or like lemonade. Honestly, guys, just go to the grocery store and get yourself some oranges if you want to have orange juice, because this is really not your juice orange. But it will hold those oranges after the leaves drop. And I can remember years ago when I first heard about this plant, it was in the magazine, and the photo that we had from one of our great photographers, Reggie Millet, had oranges and the bare branches, and there was like ice on it, and it was just like, wow, amazing, just amazing in the wintertime. So 4 seasons of interest. The fruit are like ping pong size. They're slightly fuzzy. They do turn or start out green, turn orange. And the thing to watch out for, evidently, I was reading a little online about this, is that if you let them drop on the ground, you will get a kabillion seedlings. So just your Cuphea seedlings are like, fun, exciting. I don't know that anyone would be that excited to have 100 seedlings of the, like, probably closer to the straight species of hardy orange.
Gotcha.
But if you wanted to, give an orange to a friend who's like excited to try growing something from seed, that
would be a good option.
Reliably starts from seed. I think you're not going to get the cool curvy habit of this cultivar. You're probably going to get something that looks more like the rootstock. And I think I got 2 plants. Only one of my plants has the curvy spines and that, twisty branches. The other one has straight branches. And I think that one is either a seedling or it's the rootstock of the straight species.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's not bad. It's
No,
fine.
no.
It's just not as cool as flying dragon. Anyway, so
It is a cool plant. It reminds me, okay, well, you have to be of a certain generation, but Sleeping Beauty, where the castle gets overtaken by the crazy, like, thorny brambles, those branches that overtake the cat, it reminds me of Flying Dragon Orange. It's that, like, not wicked looking, but maybe a tinge evil, it's got a little edge to it.
That last year, our web producer had asked us to do posts on Instagram about, wicked plants or scary plants. And I did the thorns of Flying Dragon.
Totally. I mean, but we don't want to scare people off. It's a very attractive, beautiful looking plant, but it's got a little edge to it. And apparently an edge to its taste too.
And you will lose a pint of blood if you try to reach in there and prune it. So don't be careful. Wear the gauntlets you would use for pruning roses, because those thorns are sharp. But it's not the kind of plant, there are some that you walk by and they like reach out and bite you. It's not that kind of thorns.
Yeah.
It defends itself. It doesn't it's not aggressive.
That's so good. Oh my God. All right. Well, that's a very exciting, after 5 years too, the payoff to see something like a plant that you've invested in for 5 years really like come into its own is very exciting. That's a good best of the year review. I was about to rip this plant out of my garden until I saw what it looks like in probably 2 more years at Chicago Botanic Garden this year. So this was a plant that was on death row at my house, but it got a reprieve. It got a reprieve because Sugar Kisses goldenrod looks phenomenal 3 years, maybe 4 years in. And that's Solidago Sugar Kisses, zones 5 to 8. I'm sorry, Brett Horvath from Intrinsic Perennials. He had sent these plugs, I think last year, and they were plugs. They were tiny, tiny plugs. But I was really excited about this plant. It's a native hybrid of goldenrod, Solidago, full sun, moist, well-drained soil. I think we all know Solidagos for the most part as being very tough plants, kind of come into their own towards the end of the season, great pollinator plants. And Sugar Kisses' claim to fame was that it had these beautiful butter yellow blossoms. It's actually a creamy white blossom with a yellow center, but it presents as a kind of a butter yellow. And I thought, that's really beautiful, because Solidago, most of the time, bright, searing yellow right in your face. And this was a little bit softer. But 2 years and I've had like 3 flowers, and it's maybe 8 inches tall now from its plug. But I went out to Chicago Botanic Garden for a photo shoot this year, and I was bopping around with Richard Hockey, who's the director of plant trials out at Chicago Botanic. And he's got a lot of Solidagos going on for a trial right now. And I just beelined it to this plant. Turns out it's Sugar Kisses, and holy macaroni, now 4 years in, I think, for them. It's a beautiful plant, absolutely beautiful. It's got these basal clumps of green strappy leaves that really develop kind of a woody stem to them. It was totally upright too, not splaying all over the place, which when you see in plant trials, similar, species that are planted next to each other in the same genus, and you go, ooh, there's the uggo one. That one's not good. This was the beauty in the patch. And yes, just completely flush in this, I think it was July, completely flush with these beautiful, beautiful buttery yellow blossoms, big kind of splaying fireworks that came out of the center of this basal clump of foliage. It didn't look weedy at all, which I feel Solidagos, goldenrods get a knock on them oftentimes that they look a little weedy. This looked more like a gorgeous aster. Like, oh, what is that petite aster? That's so beautiful. Like Lady in Black aster, except the actual flowers weren't purple, they were white. So pollinators were all over it, and I thought, oh, I got to keep it. It's got to stay in my garden. I have to hang in there for another maybe 2 years, and it's going to pay off. And I happened to mention to Richard, and I was like, hey, this is looking way better and he, of course they do the trials for 4 to 6 years on perennials. So I just have to hang in there with this Sugar Kisses goldenrod, and it's going to pay off. Eventually, 2x2, I don't know if I mentioned that, 1.5 feet tall and wide, 2 feet tall and wide, but it's a beauty. So it has a stay. It has a stay in my garden. Yep.
Plugs take patience, and I don't know, but like I think 3 or 4 years is a reasonable amount of time. I've had things take 5 or 6 years after putting in a plug, Baptisia in particular.
Oh, there you go.
Some things just take really long time to
right.
get to their full size.
I think it's hard too because I am not the most diligent record keeper. So, spring comes along, we do get some sample plants. I purchase plants myself. Sometimes there's plugs, sometimes there's 1 gallon. You never know. I'm not good about then looking back and going, oh, how many years ago did I plant that? And I feel like I am also not known as the most patient person. So, in my mind, I'm like, it's been 8 million years. It's probably been 2 years, and it's just not living up to my standard. But yeah, patience. It's a virtue.
So does this one spread by rhizomes the way Canadensis does, or is it more of a clumper?
It does not. It is a clumper. It is not rhizomatic. It is not a huge spreader. And I feel like that's what first attracted me to it in the block of Solidago plantings, because it was the one that was like behaving itself next to all of its cousins there. So yes, it's very well behaved in that manner. I actually, when I was doing research for the show today, I found out that it's become a darling of the Lori Garden in Chicago for just that reason, that it naturalizes, but not to a degree that some of the other Solidago species that they've planted in the Lori Garden in Chicago have just taken over. That this one, it has been a favored species the last few years because it actually a little bit better behaved, but still has all those great properties of Solidago, being that it's a nativar, it's a big pollinator plant. So yeah, if that's any indication, again, another reason that I have to keep it in my garden. Okie dokie pokey, what do you got next for me?
Okay, so my next is my favorite edible of the year.
Oh, everyone, listen up. Listen up, because the best vegetable gardener I know is Carol Collins over here. So, all right, drum roll.
All right, and this is a perennial too. Alexandria alpine strawberry. That's Fragaria vesca Alexandria, and it's hardy from zones 5 to 8, so most of us can grow it. And this is one that is not restricted to the veggie garden or the edibles patch. You can grow this out in the regular garden. It's very beautiful. It had what makes this different than other strawberries. So this is not native to the United States. This is native to Europe, the mountains of Europe and the woods, and pretty widespread. But unlike our native species, which make tons and tons of runners, so the plants are hard to manage, this is a clumper. So it makes almost no runners at all. So the plants are about less than a foot tall and wide. I grew it from seed, and so it's very easy to grow from seed. And the berries are amazing. So they're small, they're fragrant. They're like the size of a peanut, not the whole, with the shell on, but like one peanut.
Carol. And the size of a peanut? All right. Okay, do they mass? Is there a lot of them?
There are, but you need a lot of plants.
Okay.
To get a lot of these. You'll see these in in France. They call them frais de bois, and you don't, it's like if you get a few of them sprinkled on top of your crepes or whatever.
It's the caviar of strawberries.
It is. It is the caviar of strawberries. The flavor is amazing. They don't hold well. You're not going to really see these in our farmers markets stateside. I think you could probably buy these in a market in Paris or in other European cities because they know what they're getting and they know it's worth it to, spend several euros for a handful of berries. In 2024, I got a packet of 20 seeds, and Alexandria is available from multiple different places, but I got mine from, I think, Pine Tree Garden Seeds. Mm-hmm. And from 20 seeds, I got almost 20 plants. So germination is very good. But you do have to start them super early, like 12 weeks before your last frost. Mm-hmm. And 2 weeks before that, you can help germination by putting them in the freezer for a couple weeks. Uh-huh. So I wrap them in a damp paper towel in a Ziploc bag, put them in the freezer for a couple of weeks. And then for me, that it would be mid-February is that 12-week, until our final frost. You want to sow the seeds right on the soil surface because they need light to germinate. And they germinate very well. But the little seedlings are so adorable. It's just like the most miniature little strawberry plant, again, like peanut sized.
Yeah.
And they size up, and then by the time the last frost rolls around, you can set them out. Mine made fruit at the end of that first season. You can't always expect that, but and it wasn't heavy, but you do get some flowers and fruit sort of in the fall from that first planting. They go dormant over the winter, but they're a little bit evergreen, like they keep a few of their leaves, and then they start up again quite early in the spring. So I got my first strawberries this spring. I want to say like April or maybe May.
Oh, that's super early.
Super early. And that's really exciting just to have, something you can eat out of the garden that early in the season. Mm-hmm. What I did, because I wasn't quite satisfied with my nearly 20 plants, right? I got 5 berries last fall. So I collected berries that I found that had gone overripe and they were mushy. I saved the seeds from those, and I got probably a couple hundred seeds. And I cannot remember how I separated the seeds from the pulp. That's a little tricky, but I think I put them in water and sort of dumped it out on a paper towel or something like that.
Okay.
Saved the seeds. Did the same procedure with the cold stratification, and I got hundreds of seedlings this year. Enough so that I've got now 2 full rows of these alpine strawberries. So when I feel a break from work, I'll go out there and just eat strawberries in the garden. Very few of these make it into the house. Very few of these make it to other people that are not me.
I like it. Yeah. Hey, it's caviar, you gotta hold it close.
Absolutely. And then I had enough plants so that I brought some to my mother-in-law, and she loves them. Hers are now making fruit at the end of the season, and she's so excited. She's like, they're delicious. And unlike she grows only annuals in her containers. And so I said, don't pull them out. They'll come back next year. And they're so hardy that you can leave them if you've got them in a whiskey barrel, which is what she has. Leave them over the winter and they'll come back in the spring. They're great in rock gardens. People use them for edging. I think Keelan DeWitt out in Montana has it as a ground cover because I saw her dog likes to run through it and eat the berries, which is, I think, adorable. I gave away plants as hostess gifts. So once you have it, it's easy to make more, which is another selling point for this plant.
Totally. I feel like when I was over in Europe, I saw a couple of applications where they used alpine strawberries in knot gardens because it stays kind of that compact, very, very tight habit that, knot gardens are usually right next to the kitchen gardens over there. And so it just made a really nice almost miniature hedge, if you will, these
Yes.
little mounds that just are very polite and do their thing. And it was very cool to see that, kind of intermingled with, I don't know, they had like teucrium or something, germander that was more of a typical plant that you would see in a knot garden, but it was really cool to see alpine strawberries used in that way. So, all right. I mean, I like referring to it as like it's your, like, they're precious. You're not growing these to make jam, but you're growing them to savor them and their singular
Yes.
taste.
To use them fresh, and apparently the flowers are edible too. You can put them on salad. So I read that last night, and I tried a flower, and I'm like, meh, it's edible, but
it's form over function.
It's
pretty.
Not my favorite texture. Anyway.
I love it. That's very cool. All right. So, and the cultivar name was Alexandria?
Alexandria, and it's Fragaria vesca, Alexandria.
Love it. That's very cool. So, Carol, very, very similar to your woody plant, your flying dragon that you talked about, orange. I have a woody plant that is, I think, obviously way more common, but it took, I think, 4 years for it to really come into its own. And I've talked ad nauseum about how many panicle hydrangeas grace my beds and borders around my house. And it's just because it's the toughest hydrangea. It really, truly is. And I guess 4 years ago, we're going to lightly say 4 years ago, sample plants arrived, a stick basically of berry white panicle hydrangea, which is Hydrangea paniculata renba, RENBA is the cultivar name, but it goes by the trademark berry white, and that's BERRY, not berry white, baby. And I feel like if Steve was still on the podcast, he would, start going into a song.
Break into song.
He would break into
I won't
song.
do that.
Hey, baby. But I mean, you have to do that every time you approach this shrub. It's just dropping an octave or two. But I planted this stick, honestly forgot about it, I mean, it's a panicle hydrangea. It didn't require much to get it, established, a little bit of water. And I'm like, it's going to look like all the rest of the panicle hydrangeas. So then year 2, a little bit bigger, a couple of white flowers, conical flowers, whatever. Year 3, all right, it's starting to beef up and hold its own. I'm like, here we go, nice cohesive thread. Looks like the panicle hydrangeas on the other side of the yard. This year, whoa. All right, so this puppy berry white is supposed to get 7 feet tall and 5 feet wide. That's pretty large for a panicle hydrangea. It's in the mid-range, but a lot of the newer panicle hydrangeas lately have all been dwarfs, that have been in the 3 to 4 foot range. So this one isn't going to get quite as large as your beautiful one in your front yard, but is going to be a beefer. So 4 feet tall, 4 feet wide. And I started noticing it started to flower, white flowers. The flowers were huge. Now, references, including the person the company that bred this, say, oh yeah, those cones are going to be about 6 inches long. If you start reading like people who have actually grown this for a while, myself included, these panicle flowers are coming in 6, 8, 12 inches. I have photographic proof. If you go to our website, finegardening.com, click on that podcast, and you will see this berry white blossomed this year, almost 12 inches long, these huge conical flowers. Now, all right, berry white, great. Started out white. Progressively, probably early summer, started getting a little pink flush at the bottom of that cone. And then, started transitioning. I went out in October, I believe, and this was such a bright, intense ruby red color to the flowers that it stopped me in my tracks, and I thought, oh, what are you? And I had to dig around, and I saw that I had actually buried the tag down by the base of it, and it was berry white panicle hydrangea. It is still looking beautiful right now. Those that dark ruby color has maintained into November, still looks beautiful, has not gone russet brown color, which is still nice, but that's what the rest of the panicle hydrangeas in my yard are doing right now. This is just a stunner. I then read, oh, that's, the berry color. That's why they leaned into that color, from berry to white, from white to berry. It's awesome. It is awesome. It's probably rose to my year's best because I continuously took a bazillion photos of it in the last few months and thought, yes, this was definitely worth the wait. A well-named plant. You gotta love panicle hydrangeas too, because full sun to partial shade. I have it in partial shade, and that has not diminished the floral show at all. Well-drained soil. I have given it minimal care. The one thing I will say is it's interesting. If the deer get desperate enough, they like to munch on hydrangeas. The deer did nip it back about mid-season this year when we were having a period of drought. It only made the plant better. It kind of bushed it out a bit more. Yeah. So it wasn't, it wasn't so gangly looking. So yeah, thank you, deer, for your contribution to my pruning efforts. And berry white is looking great. I'm so glad I stuck with it. Zones 3 to 9. If you're looking for a new panicle hydrangea, I give my stamp of approval to this one.
This one wasn't in the recent Richie Stephan cover story, was it, or was it not?
I think it was. And you know what? I meant to look too. I think it actually was in the Richie Stephan article, but we produced that so far in advance. Mine wasn't coming into fall color yet. So I didn't have a photo to share. So yes, I believe it was one of Richie Stephan's favorite autumn flowering, or the hydrangeas for autumn flowers. So that's good call, Carol. So 2 stamps of approval on this one. Alrighty. So our favorite episode of the year, not to pick favorites, but it is our favorite episode of the year. And your final plant, that was your year in review best performers.
Okay, so this is one that you got for me. So it's very special. And it's a dahlia, which if anybody has been listening for any amount of time since I've been on, I love dahlias. Tangerine sorbet dahlia, which I believe that you got for me at the last time we were both at the Northwest Flower and Garden Show in Seattle, which is a couple of years ago now. Yeah, so like all dahlias, it's hardy from zones 8 to 10, and those of us in the colder regions, we have to pull the tubers in the fall and store them over the winter indoors if we want to really make sure that they come back. And that for me is no big deal. People say, I don't want to do all that work. It isn't. It takes an afternoon, even if you have hundreds of dahlias like me. So this one caught your eye. You knew that I like collarettes, and this one had the picture. It's a 2-color, and red-orange outer petals, and a soft white center is what the picture looked like. What I have discovered this year is that the flowers are extremely variable in very exciting ways. So
really,
that mix of it's a really cool. It's like a red orange or orange red. It's like, I think it's red orange, like an orange that has some red in it. Okay. The flowers can be almost entirely red orange. They can be almost entirely white. They can be like white on one side and the red orange on the other side.
What?
I was like, is this normal? And I looked, and there was somebody on a dahlia growing forum who has showed 30 pictures of 30 different flowers from Tangerine Sorbet, and they were all different. And
No
it is
way.
so cool. I think it's classified as a decorative type, which is, fully double, huge flowers, like 5 to 6 inch wide flowers. And with the petals are sort of that sort of cup shaped, like, rounded cup shaped petals. So just like super cool flower shape, big plants. The plants get 2 to 4 feet tall, not quite as wide as one of those plants. It's like, a little taller than it is wide. And my favorite description from one of the comments on the, in that forum was like, well, dahlias are emotionally unstable. So what do you expect? And I'm like, oh, aren't we all?
Same, Dahlia Farm. Same.
But I love mixes of seeds where you get lots of variation, and like to get so much variation from one plant is tremendously exciting. So I think I'm not saving many dahlia seeds this year. It's kind of a lot of work to grow dahlias from seed. But I think I got enough flowers from this that I want to see what its seedlings look like. So stay tuned for next year.
I have so many questions. Okay. So first, so if anyone, has been out to the Seattle Flower and Garden Show, there are dahlia growers aplenty, and it's a very popular, they sell the tubers. You purchase the tubers that are, kind of in like sawdust or whatever, and then they staple a gorgeous picture of a flower on it because the tubers look like, I don't know, like alien potatoes. So, obviously it's the picture that draws you in. So you grew the tuber the initial year last year.
Yeah.
Did it do like the wacky Technicolor Dream Coat then?
No. So, and those little tubers that you get from the growers, like sometimes they don't flower the first year because it's putting all of its energy into making roots. So I think I maybe got one flower last year.
Okay.
And I honestly, it was growing with other dahlias and I can't remember what it looked like. Only that it didn't look exactly like the picture.
Got it. And then did you harvest the tuber from that?
Yes.
Or did you collect seed from the couple of flowers?
No, if you want the same dahlia, you've got to dig the tuber up.
Okay.
Label it so your feeble mind can remember, which I like. Yeah, I'm like a goldfish. I'm not gonna remember 5 minutes. It has to be labeled before I pull it out of the ground.
Gotcha.
Dig it, label it. I keep mine in pine shavings, like what you would use for like animal bedding.
Yeah.
And in a cool, dark place is the other.
And so this year you go in, it's clearly labeled.
Labeled, put it in the ground.
And this Technicolor Dream Coat happened.
Yes, I got probably 5 or 6 flowers from the plant this year over the course of the summer. And like toward the end, and they, it's growing with other things. And I thought one of those flowers was a completely other plant. Mm-hmm. But then I was going in because what you really need to do is label your plants before the frost hits. So I was doing that and I was like, holy cow, these 2 flowers, which are the 2 pictures that I put in the show notes, are on the same plant and they look completely different. One mostly white, one mostly orange.
Wild. Yeah. Oh my gosh, we totally, okay, put a pin in it. We're relying on our producer Jack, who's in the background. He needs to remember that we need to come back and revisit this next year around this time and see what this dahlia has done. I mean, it could be wild. It could be burgundy.
Yeah, right. The seedlings could be anything. And that's the other thing. It's like dahlia seedlings very often, like they'll have some characteristics of their parent plant, but they can look completely different. So you never know. Wild. But I'm interested to start experimenting with the genetics from this compared to, I grow mostly singles. And so this is a stretch for me, but I think it did make seeds. And I'm going to let them mature as long as I possibly can before I harvest. But we'll see if I even get any seedlings from it. But if I do, I'll be very interested to see if they have any of these
cool.
weird and wild characteristics of the parent plant.
Say the cultivar name again because I spaced it.
It's called Tangerine Sorbet.
Tangerine Sorbet. All right. Oh my God, that was exciting. I feel like we should just end the show now. That was a cool way to end it.
Not so fast, girl. You got one more plant.
All right. Okay. So this is a new plant this year. I believe it comes onto the market next year for everyone. We get some previews oftentimes of new plants that aren't made available until the following year. And this was the plant that I was most excited to get this year. I actually specifically requested it of the plant breeder, Walter's Gardens, out in Zeeland, Michigan, to please send a couple of samples because I had seen a preview of this plant. It is Prairie Princess Ironweed. It's Vernonia, Prairie Princess, zones 4 to 9. I love Vernonia very much. It is a native plant to North America. There's different species that are more common in different areas. Around here, we have a New York ironweed, which is very tall. It is a late bloomer. It reminds me, just plant structure wise, of being very similar to a Joe Pye weed. And in the final throes of summer into fall, it puts up gorgeous, gorgeous, bright amethyst purple flowers that the pollinators go bananas over. It's a lovely, lovely native plant. I love Vernonias very, very much. They can be thuggish if you give them too much water. So plant them in an area that after establishment is maybe a little starved for water. If you put them in the wetlands, they do tend to naturalize quite robustly. But anyway, this Prairie Princess I was excited about because it had foliage that was very thread-like, much like a thread leaf Amsonia. Very, very thin, very feathery, great texture to the plant. Probably a lot of you out there are saying, oh yeah, there already is a Vernonia like that. It's called Iron Butterfly. It looks like an Amsonia. It's got purple flowers. The problem that I've had with Iron Butterfly, and I've grown it before, is that it has that great foliage that's very like feather-like, beautiful, stays pretty compact, maybe 2 feet by 2 feet. But the blooms are kind of this washed out lilac color. They're not like the straight native species that tend to be that dark amethyst, gorgeous purple. This is more like a, pastel purple. Not my favorite. And Iron Butterfly splays. It just splays. It hits any drought periods. It opens up and splits. Heavy rains, it opens up and splits. It is a plant that doesn't behave very well, which is unfortunate because the foliage is very, very beautiful and it would make a great, middle of the border plant, but it's not great. So this Prairie Princess is supposed to be the improvement on that. And let me tell you, it sure as shoot skis is. It came as I think a quart pot. It was a stick. It had, you could see kind of the feathery foliage. So I popped them into the ground. I got a few of them and I pinched them back pretty religiously. 3 times throughout the season, I pinched back this Vernonia just to really get it to bush out and kind of get it to where I wanted it to be structurally in the first season. Worked beautifully. Absolutely awesome. Probably delayed the flowering a bit than it normally would have because I was doing the Chelsea chop 3 times a year. But come mid-September, oh yeah, baby. It had bulked out. It was about 1 foot tall by 1 foot wide, which is about half of what it should be at maturity, and covered in gorgeous dark purple flowers. Plenty of butterflies, plenty of bees, plenty of pollinators on it. And those plant really withstood. We had a wicked drought here this summer in New England. And then when we did get rain, it was a deluge of rain. You know, I just had in central Connecticut just washed out. This plant stood tall, stood proud, looked really good. So in zones 4 to 9, so a lot of people are in the mix for this plant. That's a really wide zonal range. I love that it's a nativar. I love that it's an improvement on a plant that I really wanted to be a performer, but just didn't for me. So stay tuned. It's year 1, folks. So, you know, I'm just doing a preview and a little caveat that, hey, we'll see what year 2 brings, but man, it was something that lived up to expectation, which in plant world is hard to do. And now, because everything sounds better with a British accent, here's Peter to talk about his best of the year.
2025. What a year it's been. Now, I know I should use this time to talk about the best plant I planted this year, but you have a trio of lovely ladies to do that. Instead, I want to reflect on this year of high drama, deep emotion, and the single greatest pastry I've ever encountered. Truly, if this is retirement, I may finally have got the hang of it. Let's start with Luton Town FC, my glorious Hatters. Now I've followed them through thin, thinner, and the occasional whisper of thick. But this year, I finally got to see them played live for the first time in almost 35 years. And what a day. Kenilworth Road, a sea of orange. The home crowd in full voice as the teams took the pitch. A new manager. What could possibly go wrong? Well, quite a lot actually. We lost 2-0 and I managed to lose both my voice and my Luton bobble hat to add to the misery. But no matter. It was wonderful to be back among the Hatters faithful. Then came the Grand Tour of Europe. I call it that to sound sophisticated, though in reality it was mostly me trying to find reliable Wi-Fi and snacks. I began in London, where the rain welcomed me like an old friend. From there, I wandered south into France, rediscovered the true meaning of cheese in Paris, and then back to the UK, where of course I had to stop back in Luton to pick up a replacement hat for the one I'd inadvertently misplaced. But my pièce de resistance didn't happen abroad. Oh no, it happened in Boston, Massachusetts. I found myself in Mike's Pastry, home of the legendary Florentine cannoli. I took one bite and heard angels singing. The shell was crisp perfection, the filling creamy, sweet, but not too sweet, with that touch of ricotta that makes you feel sophisticated and slightly Italian. I actually whispered, "This is art," to no one in particular. People stared. I didn't care. For a moment I was transcendent, elevated, enlightened by pastry. So yes, 2025 was a grand success. A return to Luton Town, European wanderings, and a dessert that changed my worldview. Next year, I plan to keep things simple. Just me, a cup of tea, and maybe, for scientific purposes, another cannoli. You know, to make sure it really was that good.
Oh, Carol. You knew he had to get in Luton football in there somehow. I mean, the fact that he was going to tell us the best play of the year. Nobody cares, Peter. Nobody cares.
Yay. He cares. He cares. And therefore we care.
All right. See, Carol's a far nicer person than me. All right. Let's see if our guest for this episode is just as nice and has some plants to talk about instead of football.
Kristen Bean Sullivan is the executive editor of Garden Gate, Fine Gardening, and Horticulture Magazine. She's my boss, and she has agreed to come and do year in review with us. Welcome to the pod, Kristen.
Well, thanks for inviting me, Carol. This is really fun. I'm a newbie at this.
It's fun to have you. And this is the best topic of the year, in my opinion, because we can talk about anything that we want. Before we begin, though, I would love if you could tell everyone where you garden and what the conditions are like in your average gardening year.
Yeah, sure. Well, I am in Des Moines, Iowa. We are Zone 5, and we have everything here. We have 40 below temperatures sometimes in the winter, and we have 110 degrees sometimes in the summer, with everything in between, and plenty of humidity in the summer. And sometimes we have reliable snow cover in the winter, and sometimes we don't. So it's just we just never know from year to year what we'll get. Summer is sometimes reliable, again, for rainfall. This year we had lots of rain in July, which was just great. That was unusual. And then the faucet was shut off in August and September and we had almost nothing. So, you know, it could be anything. It's just sort of anything goes here. So we need a lot of tough plants, obviously, and just be ready for anything.
And I imagine that you have the same occupational hazard that Danielle and I have. It's like you learn about all these amazing plants, and the hard part is deciding what you can afford to have in your own garden or that you have space for in your own garden.
That's exactly right.
Yeah.
I have a pretty small urban garden. It's only a 1/4 acre. So, you know, I've killed a lot of plants over the years, obviously, like I'm sure you have too, because I want to try everything, right? So, but I'm also getting a little bit more choosy now that I'm sort of learning what really works here and what doesn't. I'm having to be a little bit more selective and not just take anything that looks cool. I have to really be careful about what I think will work and what won't. And also, I travel quite a bit in the summer, so I really don't have a ton of time to be babying things along. And it's not kind to ask my husband to know where every little plant that needs extra care is. So yes. He does a great job. He really does. But, you know, I try to be nice about that.
Yeah, I don't think I would have any luck. My husband would be like, what plant? Where? Yeah.
As long as I don't ask him to weed. He doesn't weed. He'll water.
So what were some of your highlights? Let's start with your first plant. What do you got for us?
Right. Well, you know, last year we built a new garage, and so again, small 1/4 acre lot, pretty small, very small backyard. But when we built the garage, we ripped out the entire backyard as well and regraded it and just started completely over. So this was the first chance I really had to be really intentional about what I was putting in that space because, you know, over the years I've done a lot of onesies, twosies, threes, you know, gathered a lot of things as I went and plopped them in where I had space. But this year I made a plan. What? That's a novel idea.
On paper and everything? Oh, wow.
I know. So I made a plan and I just started from scratch. And so it was hard to narrow things down. I have a kind of a disciplined color palette. I really try to stick with the color. I have a brick house that has multicolored bricks on it, so not every color looks great with that, I don't think. I'm really trying to lean toward oranges and purples in my garden. And so the first plant I want to talk about is Totally Tangerine Geum, which I have grown that plant before in the front yard in a spot that just has, I almost never do anything to it. You know, it's far away from the faucet and the sprinkler doesn't reach it very well. And, you know, it's low care spot and it's done really well. So I bought several plants and put them along the pathways in the backyard and they took off. I mean, they just did so great this year. Totally Tangerine is probably the most vigorous geum I've seen and also read about. I mean, I've seen this in other gardens as well. It's a really vigorous geum, and I love, of course, it's in that orange color family, so I love that. It grows 2 to 2.5 feet tall, maybe about the same width, maybe a little less wide than tall. But, you know, these airy orange clouds of flowers that bloom are so great, and they bloom for a really long time, which is so nice. And one of the things I like about it so much is that the foliage, you know, a lot of times when you put in a perennial and it blooms, a lot of times the plant just doesn't look great for the rest of the year, you know, after the plant blooms. But this is one of those plants that the foliage is just great. I mean, it looks so healthy and green. And I mean, it's November, middle of November, and it still looks fantastic now. And it's rough, tomentose foliage, also no rabbit damage, which that's huge for me because I have terrible rabbit problems in my yard intermittently. So that's really good. And it just got a really fast start, which was nice because, you know, I planted 1 gallon plants, and this year, I mean, they were, you know, that sleep, creep, leap thing didn't really come into play. They leapt right away. So that was nice. So anyway, that's my first plant. Have you grown this one?
I haven't. What is the bloom window for a geum? Is it a spring flowering plant?
I would say mid to late spring through early summer. It's a really long window. And one of the things that I would recommend when planting any geum is to plant in clumps, because the airy flowers, if you plant a single plant, it doesn't make that much of an impact. But if you have these sort of clouds of blooms, in a larger mass, it's really nice.
Yeah, and I
And the
love
seed
that
heads are pretty.
color.
Yeah, me too. Me too.
Yeah.
And the seed heads are pretty too. So even when the petals fall off, it has these little, it's just a little button that stays, and it's cute. They're not ugly when they go down either.
That is really, really
Yeah.
cool. Wow, that's a great first plant. And I have seen that too in many gardens, and it's never occurred to me to plant it myself. So
Yeah, that's a good
okay,
one.
good. Another one for my list. Just what I needed.
And it's easy to divide. Actually, the first time I grew it, I got it from our test garden where it had grown really vigorously, and I got a division. And then anyway, so that's why I went out and bought a bunch more.
Oh, that's really cool. All right, so one down and a super super one at that. What else do you have?
Well, the second one is the Korean feather reed grass. And I've grown Carl Forster and some other feather reed grasses in the past. And I like them because they're a middle-sized ornamental grass. I've had a lot of miscanthus over the years, but in my garden, small garden, it's just, a 6-7 foot plant. Just, you can't have too many of them, right? So I like this sort of 3 to 4 foot tall and wide grass, which is nice for texture and movement and interest throughout the year. This one is a later bloomer than the feather reed grasses that most of us have been used to growing, the cutafloras. This is a brachytricha, and it takes full sun. It will tolerate some light shade. It blooms later, I said, with a much puffier, more substantial seed head, which I think is really nice. And in fact, they still are holding on right now in November, like I said. I don't think they bloomed until probably in September sometime in my garden, when the other types of reed grasses bloom more June, July. And they'll hold on for quite a while, but probably those blooms will be gone, by the end of winter. They're not substantial enough to hold on, till spring. But yeah, and this is another one that got a really fast start, and one that I included in this overhaul of my backyard. And I was impressed with how quickly they took off and reached, really impressive size this year.
This one I remember I did an article on winter color, and I traveled up to Ontario area, and the Toronto Botanic Garden had this. And I was there, I'm guessing it was January, and it looked great. It was just, that beautiful straw color.
Isn't it nice?
It's so nice. And it looks very different. Everyone loves Carl Forrester, and I do too, but it looks really different.
It is very different. It's
Yeah.
almost, the seed heads almost remind me of pampas grass, which is something that it's those sort of shape that's sort of, like this more.
Like a plume, right? Like
Yeah, like more of a
rather
plume.
than like the wheat shape.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. It has a little more denseness and a little bit more, a fatter shape to it. Yeah.
Very cool.
Yeah.
All right. And this would maybe be a good combo with your geum too.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Well, in a small space, you're really thinking about what will have the longest season, what will make an impact for the longest amount of time.
Yes.
If you want to plant in groups and clumps instead of one, and those were two plants that really, they made the cut there.
Very cool. Awesome. All right.
Well,
So
the third one is a little different because it's not a perennial, and it's a petunia, and I don't normally grow petunias, but this year we had some new plants sent to us, and I tried this one because the color appealed to me. It's called Ray Shadow, and it's just a really unusual and sort of, I thought, sophisticated looking color combo. So I wanted to try it in a container, and it's. Is it a buff color? Is it kind of yellowish? Is it pink? I mean, yes, to all of that. It's sort of, changes colors a little bit as it ages, and it has dark purple veining and dark purple centers. And so it blends really well with a lot of different things. And I planted it at the base I have a lot of elephant ears in my yard that I overwinter from year to year. And I planted it at the base of an elephant ear, and just had that around the bottom, and it was so pretty. I love that color combination. And maybe it's just because I'm drawn to those kind of neutrals to purples to oranges. It's sort of, that's my color family that I love so much.
Yeah, it is really. I took a peek in the show notes,
Yeah.
and I wanted to if someone is listening and not watching, you can go to our show notes, and Kristen's plants are in there too. Really beautiful. Like, I think buff is a really good description for the base color, but it's like a pair of khakis that would go with absolutely any color, right?
That's a good way to describe it. That's funny. Yeah, exactly. And again, I don't grow petunias as a rule. Generally, I don't know. I just never have. Maybe because there's so many pink, there aren't many orange options, but it had a couple of big flushes. Yes, it slowed down when it got hot, but then it came back again when it cooled off. So, I had a couple of really beautiful big flushes out of it, and it was quite nice.
I think that's a smart idea too, to use it as to sort of cover up the knees of a taller plant.
Yeah.
Because it will stay low, I guess, as any petunia would.
Maybe it's a mounding petunia, so not a trailer. So it was 12 to 14 inches tall, maybe, and about that same width.
Very cool. Yeah, I love that. I don't remember the last time I grew a petunia, but this one might be worth a try.
Yeah, I really liked it. Yeah. Excellent. So those are my 3 plants.
Well, thank you so much for joining us. And like I said, your photos will be in the show notes. And yeah, happy gardening.
Happy gardening. Thank you so much for inviting me, Carol. This was fun.
All right, Carol, take it away. Wrap her up.
Well, so now you've met my boss. Isn't she nice? And she's got great taste in plants, so who could ask for more?
Totally. I mean, 3 garden editors talking about their 3 favorite or 4 favorite plants of the year. I mean, that's a list. That's a good, robust list.